Hello, everyone, and welcome to this very special edition of the Pulls Pod. For the first time, I have someone in the kitchen with me recording today. He is the man who's made 384 appearances for Hartlepool United, won the Player of the Season 3 times, in particular in the 1990-1991 season in which Hartlepool United got promoted out of, I want to say, which division was it? Can you remember?
It's the fourth division.
The fourth division. Actually, there was a photo posted on Twitter recently, I think, where it was a picture of you on the bus, and a couple of the lads on the bus. I think someone replied that it was quite Baltic on the bus as well. If you can remember that far, it was quite cold on the bus.
We just, funnily enough, the club took us away to Mallorca at the end of the promotion season, and I think that was the Monday we come back, and it was more or less the second night or something. It was absolutely freezing. So yeah, it was a bit of a change from the warm climate of Mallorca back to the cold biting wind of Hartlepool.
Yeah, I bet it was. He spent 14 years at Pulls in various capacities. He got player, coach, he was assistant manager at one point, and there was the caretaker manager spell as well. If you haven't guessed from the voice already, it is Brian on it, and this is our second time having a go at this after the previous postpone, but our availability is finally aligned. Hello, Brian. How are you today?
I'm very well, Jack. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. And as I've mentioned as well, he is live and in the kitchen. So hopefully the quality of the microphone doesn't dip at any point. And before we get into your career, Brian, it's nice to see for once that we can come off the back of victories instead of having to talk about, the present doom and gloom, if you like. As well, you are representing your club Newcastle with the choice of jacket today, and given that they've come off the Wembley final, I believe you were at Wembley, weren't you?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, great result for Pools on Saturday, much needed, I think. But results have been, very up and down. We seem to get a good result, then two or three bad results. So I think it's been, just replication of the season, really. Very up and down, middle of the road. And that's probably where they're at, yeah. But I mean, the jacket, what you're on about, Jack, it was a free gift of Paul Baker, another ex Hartlepool star. He's a scout up there, so anytime there's any free gear or they're chucking out the old stock, he grabs a bag for me. So I don't think I pay for it, but still keeps us warm when I'm going around the schools and coaching.
Hey, if it does the job, it does the job. You can't complain about what you wear. Excellent. So, getting into the career, a very good career, I'm sure that a lot of Pulse fans would say. He came from a family of footballers. You had a lot of role models growing up as well in the collieries, I think I'm right in saying. And there was something that I've read about Stanley Matthews, particularly if you can recall.
You've done your homework, haven't you?
Oh, I have.
Yeah. Stanley Matthews was manager of Port Vale at the time. Must have been around about, because I was only a little behind, so maybe 66, 67. Maybe he's a bit older than that, I don't know. Maybe he's a bit later on than that. And he was coming to sign out John, who was a very promising schoolboy. He went to later play for Pools as well. But there was loads of clubs after our John at the time: Newcastle, West Brom, Aston Villa. And like I say, Stanley Matthews actually drove up from the Potteries to Horden, 26 Warren Street, and tried to sign out John there and then. It's like probably the equivalent of David Beckham managing a club now and going to sign somebody from Horden and turning up on the doorstep. But he's Alex, I can't really remember anything, but I remember, and I've still got it now. He had a share in the Potteries, and he brought me mum out a lovely tea set, if you like, and all the lads. There was 5 lads, 4 brothers and myself. We all got a bone china mug with Stanley Matthews on, so I've still got that to this day, But yeah, like I say, I can't remember much about it, but I can only picture back in the time in the 60s, this big car turning up at in the streets of Horden, and it was a Stanley Matthews, and he tried everything to sign out John, but he eventually signed for West Bromwich Albion.
Fair enough. I mean, it feels like that is the equivalent of what a wad of, a signing on fee of however much to get these days in the Premier League, where a manager comes around and says, "Well, we'll give you this, just sign on the dotted line."
Probably his way of being a ticer, you know what I mean? Like I say, my mum got this beautiful China set, and we all there's 5 lads all got a little memento and signed photo of him as well, which like I say, I've still got to this day. And he was a superstar, you know what I mean? He was just like, he's probably the equivalent of David Beckham, you know, and Steve Gerrard or something like that. But like I say, I was too young to remember it, but I've still got the mementos.
Absolutely. I mean, the FA Cup final for Blackpool, I think it was against Bolton's gone down in English football folklore, if you like. And
Mm,
he was certainly the superstar before the traditional superstar, if you like,
yeah,
at that time. And looking on, Aston Villa, you were unfortunately rejected.
mm,
And I think the quote was that you were too small
yeah,
at the time, which I'd like to think, and I think a lot of people would agree that you did make a fool of that suggestion, let's say. But about your time at Aston Villa before we come on to your time in the Northeast, I can only assume it was a bit of a crushing blow, if you like, at the time, but clearly it didn't get you down and you've managed to come back
yeah,
from it stronger.
yeah. I mean, to be fair, if I'm honest, I never really believed I was good enough for Aston Villa. I mean, they had a great youth policy at the time. You know, Mark Walters, who went on to be a proper good player, Premier League player. Ray Walker, some great. They just won the FA Youth Cup. And I never really, if I'm honest, I never really thought I was good enough or strong enough or big enough to make the grade there, at that time. But it was odd. It was funny because we didn't have a phone, so they hadn't let me know. I know there was me and a lad called Keith Oakley, who was a centre half, who was also on schoolboy forms, and I knew that he'd been, the club had let him know that they weren't taking him on, but I hadn't heard anything, so I just presumed that as like, oh, I've got half a chance here. Like Keith has found out that he's not getting took on, and I haven't found out. So I started this running regime around the streets of Horden, having a raw egg, bit like Rocky. And so I'd run around the streets of Horden this morning about 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. Unfortunately, when I got back, my mum had opened the letter. There was a letter there from Aston Villa saying that I hadn't been given an apprenticeship because in their mind that they thought I was too small. So that was it really, you know what I mean? The next thing was well, I need to try and get a job, So probably the next stage was to try and, go down the pit, which was what everybody else, all my mates did, go down the pit, and that's what at that moment in time, that was the next step really, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? And then I saw an article, or my mum saw an article in the paper, I think it was the Northern Echo, saying that Darlington were looking, they're looking to bring it, like start a youth policy, if you like. And they were having trials at Darlington. So I went through and obviously got signed more or less straight away, really. So that stopped their going down the pit.
We'll bleep out any mention of the D word because I
Oh,
think a lot of
yeah,
people will now. So,
yeah,
but yeah, that was my next point about the Echo. You saw the advert in the paper, and obviously you managed to get the apprenticeship. There was a lot of competition there, I'd imagine, but you know, it was one of those. I imagine it must have been a real confidence boost to get to
yeah, yeah,
somewhere and
yeah. I
start.
mean, yeah, to be fair, there was, the trials, if I call it trials, it was just small-sided games and jumpers for goalposts, really. But we got changed I'll never forget, we got changed at Feetham's. And we had to walk like through the back, which there was a park called South Park, which is massive, just green field, massive. And when I got there, I was there a little bit late because I had to get the bus there from Horden, and just hundreds and hundreds of kids. Well, it seemed like hundreds and hundreds of kids at the time. Um, and he just like put a bib on and go and play in there, and that was it. Really, five sides, and I'd only been playing about 20 minutes, and then there's a tap on my shoulder, really, and say, oh, you come off now, son. And I thought, oh, well, even Darlington don't want me now. I must be really bad, And there was a bloke called Kenny Ellis, who was like kind of youth coach at the time. And he said, oh, that go and see the manager and get changed and go and see the manager. And I was like, tell you, mate, what have I done wrong here? Like, anyway, I went and see the manager, and he said, we've seen enough in the 10, the 15 minutes you've played. We'd like to offer you an apprenticeship. And I was like, oh, good lad, stroke a look for a change, some good news, I don't have to go down the pit. Um, and that was basically it, went home, told my mum, and that was it from there, really. Got an apprenticeship, 2-year apprenticeship. Yeah, it was all right, it's good.
And given that after 20 minutes he brought you off, you've already said you thought what must have gone wrong, and
Mm,
ordinarily that may well have been the case.
mm.
But how did the mindset turn on its head, given that after only 20 minutes they obviously decided you were good enough and brought you in to see the manager at the time?
Yeah, yeah, massive. I mean, to be fair, like I say, I'd had 2 or 3 years at Aston Villa of a very, very high standard. And with all due respect, some of the kids were like just, what I mean, just turned up because there was a trial, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
written in. And obviously the club had to oblige to give them a trial because they'd advertised it. But, I felt like looking at the standard, I was probably a little bit better than them, you know what I mean? I fancied my chances. And like I say, just a confidence booster, but probably the unfortunate thing at the time was all the youth coaches and the youth development officer, a bloke called Dave Richardson, they had all moved to Leicester after they'd left Aston Villa. They were at Aston Villa and they'd left Aston Villa to go to Leicester. And then I went through to Darlington about a couple of weeks later to sign the forms, watch the match, that sort of stuff, And then at that time we'd moved house and we'd got a phone in, and there was a phone call from this Dave Richardson from Leicester saying, "Look, we I know you were at Aston Villa and we know things didn't really work out there, but there's an apprenticeship here for you at Leicester City. It's there for you now. You don't have to come for a trial." And I went, "Oh, 2 days ago I was just signed for Darlington, you know what I mean?" So it was a bit of a blow, but going to Darlington or Hartlepool, you've probably got more chance of making the grade and staying in the game, and actually quite a few of them players who got signed at Aston Villa never really played a league game at any level. You know what I mean? So probably going at a smaller club like Darlington and playing at Hartlepool was probably the making of us, really. You know what I mean? Probably family level, really. And like I say, made a living rather than just having the 2-year apprenticeship and then going off into non-league. Like I say, because they have to play you at the lower league. That's what I say to all the kids. You know what I mean? Don't be, if you've got a chance to make a grade in football, don't think at schoolboy level that going to the big clubs that you're going to make the grade. Sometimes going to lower level, you've got a better chance, and that's certainly what happened to me.
Absolutely, and if I know he's not at schoolboy level these days, but if you do manage to bump into Ray's Cleary at any point, please let him know that because I don't think many fans would be upset if he did sign beyond the end of the season instead of going back to West Brom and because he's been excellent so far this season.
Oh,
But
right.
coming back onto yourself, a name that a lot of Pulse fans will know, he adorns one of the stands at the stadium is Cyril Knowles, who, let's say, you've had a love-hate relationship with in the game. You got that accusation leveled at you again in terms of your stature, and that was at Darlington first of all. Was it? I mean, again, it sounds a bit reductive to say it was just a blow, but again, did it feel at that point as though the pits may be an option again, or was it a matter of because you'd suffered the blow once you come back from it again, was the confidence there that you could convince him?
Yeah, I mean, people think about this love hate with Cyril. I mean, we got on well. I just don't think he rated me. You know what I mean? Which is fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't. I didn't really enjoy the year under Cyril because he was taking me. I mean, he'd pick a team 20 minutes later, and literally 20 minutes later, he would take me off. You know what I mean? And he was never. He never bullied me or anything like that. Or he didn't rate me. You know what I mean? He got me in the office at the end of the season and said, "Look, it's nothing personal or anything like that. I'm just going to go for bigger, stronger boys, stronger men, if you like." And to be fair, he's right because the end of the next year, Darlington got promoted. And he says, "I don't think you're physically strong enough or fit enough, or I just don't think you're big enough to play in the fourth division on a regular basis." By that time, I played about 70 or 80 games for Darlington. But in that year with Cyril, it was like, that was nobody enjoys getting took off for 20 minutes. And I was glad that he let me go. And, I mean, I think I've said before, I skipped, at Darlington, they used to have a cricket field next to the ground. And after he told me, a lot of the lads, they were like upset when they'd been told that. No, I wasn't like I just looked at it as a new start. And I just wanted to enjoy my football, you know what I mean? I just wanted to literally, I wasn't on a lot of money at Darlington, so it wasn't never going to be like, oh my God, how am I going to get the money back or whatever, you know what I mean? Because dole money and a little bit expenses that I got at Peterlee Newtown more than covered what I was getting at Darlington, So I wasn't one of them who like moped about and like, oh God, I'm out of football. It was just in the end, I was glad to be out of it, to be honest, you know what I mean? Because it wasn't enjoyable, you know what I mean? The bus journeys from Horden were you're like it was an hour and a half every day, and it was just getting me down and like saying not playing or playing and getting took off or but yeah, I respect Cyril, you know what I mean? What people think like say it's a love hate, it was never like that. He was just he was honest with me and I preferred it that way, to be honest, he was fine, he was no problem. He explained that in his opinion that I wasn't strong enough. So the next step was obviously that to sign on the dole, you know what I mean? And I had, obviously the pits weren't an option then because it was 1984,
Mm.
which was the strike.
Ah, yeah.
So I used to go picketing and everything with the lads, you know what I mean? And become like a striker minor, if you like, without being a minor. And I signed for Peterlee Newtown, and I got my mojo back. I was playing with men then in the old Northern League, and that's in that 6 months I was at Peterlee Newtown. It made a man of me, and that was the real grounding. Playing every week, getting kicked up a height, and getting elbowed in the face, and having a few beers and with the blokes and all that. It was just absolutely fantastic. I absolutely loved it, and that's because I loved it, and because I was enjoying my football, and meant I was playing well, and because I was playing well, I got spotted for pools, and that was the grounding really. So from like not being strong enough to play in the old fourth division to going into the Northern League and getting kicked all over. To be fair, Jack, I had time on my hands,
Yeah.
so I trained. I needed a job at the time. Don't get me wrong. So I had a push bike,
Mm.
and I used to pedal up to all the factories, and I was absolutely the fittest I'd ever been in my life. To be fair, and that stood me in good stead because I stood out in the Northern League because I was fitter. Lads who've been to work all week or down the pit or in the factories or in the steelworks or whatever, coming to play football on a Tuesday night or a Saturday. Well, I trained, like I say, I trained me backside off, and it made me stand out. And like I say, that cold foggy day at Tow Law, when Billy Horner come to watch our centre forward, went away like, want me to go down on for them, want me to train with them. And fitness levels were never ever going to be a problem. You know what I mean? I went from Peterlee into Hartlepool's dressing room, and I was the fittest at the club. So yeah, it worked out in the end. It was a blessing in disguise, to be fair.
Yeah, and I mean, you covered it pretty well there. Would you say that that was sort of the making of you as a footballer in terms of doing your time, say, in the lower leagues and basically standing out amongst people who,
Hmm.
there's no disrespect there because there's levels of football all over the
Yeah,
pyramid and rightly so in this
yeah,
country, but
yeah.
it helped you stand out.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, Jack. Yeah, I mean, you think then the Northern League was Blythe Spartans, Whitby Town, Spennymoor, Bishop Auckland, Gretna. Some, I mean, some like good clubs, good football clubs, but they were hard men, proper hard men. You know what I mean? And even then, when first like I asked Peter Lee, well, I didn't demand. I just said, look, if I'm going to sign for you, I want to play middle of midfield, and I was only 9 stone wet through. Like they must have thought, oh, you're going to have a right time middle of midfield playing the Northern League, But like I say, I was just all over the pitch. I was fit as a flea, I mean, I was absolutely all over the pitch, and it absolutely made me not only as a player, as a football player, but as a man. It made me grow up. And to be fair, there was a few clubs, non-league wise, that wanted to sign me. Barrow wanted to sign me. They went on to win the FA Trophy. Gateshead wanted to sign me. Good clubs, to be fair, but I just wanted to go somewhere on the doorstep. I wanted to enjoy my football. People were like, what are you signing for Peterlee for? You know what I mean? I could have went all over for a lot more money. But I knew in me heart of hearts that Peterlee was the right club for me at the time. The manager and the assistant manager, Stan Summerall and Bobby Park, were absolutely fantastic. I had my cousin in goal, Barry Caulfield. A lot of Hartlepool lads, Terry Bainbridge
Yeah.
played, Gordon Larkin, God rest his soul, he played. And it was just a great place to be at the time, you know what I mean? And I ended up only being there 6 months, but that 6 months was absolutely the making of me.
Absolutely. And your first game for Pulls after Billy Horner got you to sign on the dotted line was unfortunately a loss to Peterborough by 3 goals to 0.
Yeah.
Do you remember much about the game at the time? Was there any nerves going into it?
No, I felt like I say, I trusted myself then, you know what I mean? Well, a lot of confidence at the time. I really, really trusted myself because of my experience at Peterlee. But leading up to that, we he just asked me, he got Harry Wilson to come and knock at the door, and said, oh, Billy Horner saw you on Saturday and wants you to come down training this week. And I just went down training. And like I say, it was just, everything seemed right, you know what I mean? The dressing room, like Roy Hogan, Graham Headley, Eddie Blackburn, again, rest his soul. Characters, proper characters, men, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, the Peterborough game, I just felt as if I'd fit in, no problem. The only thing I can remember was Craig Farnaby missed missed a chance at the town end from literally about 3 yards out. He put it over the bar, poor Craig. Um, and that, but like I say, I just at that time, that dressing room, the banter, the crack, you had to, you know, what I mean, you had to be part of it, or you sink. To be fair, you know, and it was brilliant, great. I mean, again, that from I think it was from January to May, that season in 84, 85 was brilliant. Absolutely loved it, loved it.
Yes, and going on to the next season, you were an ever present in the 85-86 season, which is always a good thing for a footballer. Whether you're a good footballer, whether you're maybe not on the level, if you're present and you're there, you know, people are going to attune to that. It's very similar. You look at the current squad, you've got Nathan Sherrin, who's basically there every week. I think he's missed a couple through suspension, but he's there every week.
Mm,
Anthony Mancini has the talent, can't stay fit,
mm,
unfortunately. So that if you're ever present, it's half the battle,
yeah.
which is always a good thing there. And there's a particular game that I've noted down, which is Southend at home, where there was a goal scored by yourself from about 30 yards out, if you
Yeah,
remember that one, a good
yeah, yeah,
volley.
yeah. I remember that because one of them, you know, and that obviously no television cameras at the time,
Yes.
but it's stuck in the stanchion, like you know when it sticks in there.
Yes, in the corner.
Yeah, it was absolutely. We were losing. I remember Bobby Moore, interestingly enough, was manager of Southend at the
Mm.
time, and we were losing at half time. And Billy Horner gives a bit of a rollick in at half time. We come out, and I think I made the goal for Alan Little. I think he scored, and then I scored were worldy, to be honest. Scored 11 goals that year from wide left, which was good. Again, like you said, you never missed a game. There was never like, oh, you rest or played Sherpa Vans or whatever it was, Freight Rovers or FA Cup, league games. Never missed a game. And you didn't want to rest, you know what I mean? Like, here players these days are like, can't play 3 games a week, can't play 2 games a week. Just want to play, you know what I mean? So yeah, a good season personally, but in a little bit tinged with a little bit disappointment because we should have got promoted that year. We were absolutely running away with it. You know, top of the league and then in the top four. And then I remember back there was a really really bad winter that time, and it was we never played for about 5 or 6 weeks.
Mm.
And come back, we just weren't the same team. You know, we couldn't win for Tuffy. To be fair, it was hard going, you know, then confidence dipped and there was no playoffs then, you know. So I think we would have got in the playoffs if it had been, you know, a couple of years later. But yeah, but in the end it was disappointing because we should have got up. Personally, like I say, I won player of the year that year, never missed a game, scored 11 goals. Brilliant. Times were like, oh, fantastic. Absolutely loved it. So again, we signed in the summer, recruited in the summer, Alan Shoulder, Bob Newton, Tom Kelly, um, Alan Little, Nigel Walker, some great players, great lads. But again, I go back. The dressing room and the crack was like
Yeah.
unbelievable, unbelievable. Bus trips were like never felt like a bus trip because the band was obviously no computers and no tip tapping on computers or anything like or phones or anything like that.
Yes.
It was crack. It was card skills. It was sing songs. It was a bottle of wine or whatever on the way home, you know. But that's the way it was at the time, you know.
Absolutely. And it's a few years off the promotion season, and you've mentioned there that promotion was certainly a possibility in 1986.
Mm.
Did it feel like, with the players you were signing and the culture at the club, did it feel like, if not a promotion, then certainly positive things were on the way for the squad?
Yeah, it certainly, you know, we fancied our chances the year after, that is for sure. But we had a bad start, and I think Billy Horner got sacked after. I don't know. I think we lost to Crew 5-0 or something at home, and David Platt played for Crew. I think he might have scored a hat trick. And Billy got sacked, and John Bird took over. And just he wanted to change things. He got rid of a few players that were the mainstays. You know, Nigel Walker went, Eddie Blackburn went, Alan Shoulder retired with an eye injury, Bob went. All these characters went, because Birdie wanted to bring like his own style and his own players because he was a player coach so these were all teammates really to John,
Yeah.
and he wanted to clear them all out really, which was a huge mistake in my opinion, but he wanted to rebuild, and he signed the likes of Paul Baker and Kevin Carr and Paul Haig and people like that, and rebuilt, and he built another good team, to be fair.
Yeah, and there was something, and again, I don't want to say a love-hate relationship because you've already got me on that one with Cyril Knowles. But there was a transfer request towards the end when Terry Cochrane was signed as a potential replacement, and then eventually you did sign an extension there. So what was the process behind that? Was it a falling out, or was it simply a disagreement? Was there a way of thinking that Cochrane was coming in and you'd be eased out?
Yeah.
But then obviously the extension happened, so something must have turned.
Well, it was under John Bird, and I'm not speaking out of term, John as a number two, as assistant manager, I thought he was absolutely fantastic. He coaching was good, his motivation was good, but as a manager, certainly towards me, it kind of changed a little bit, and he brought loads of players in to replace me. I was stop-start that year because I'd had chicken pox at the start of the season. I had a disjointed bone in my back, broke my wrist, broke my nose, had an ankle injury. It was stop-start. I was never nowhere near the player I was that year. And he brought all sorts of players in. Keith Lockhart come in, Tony Barrett, Kevin Dixon brought in to play wide. But the final nail was actually, it had something to do with Terry Cochrane. I was sub, and again, it was at Crewe, and I never got on. And I just got showered and stuff like that. And we're walking out to the ground at Crewe, me and Terry Cochrane. And he was like saying, this is terrible. This standard's terrible. I don't even want to play for this club. I don't even want to be here. And yet he was the one who was taking my place, you know what I mean? So I went in to see Birdie and I just said, look, it's not for me. It's not working out at this moment in time. I love the club, love the fans, love everything about it, but just want to play and enjoy. Again, I just wanted to play and enjoy myself. I don't think Birdie was taking to me as a manager, So I asked for a transfer and he said, yeah, no problem at all. I'll put you on the transfer list. And that was more or less it, to be fair. And then Phil Brown rang me. He was manager at he was a player at Halifax. And he said, well, Billy Ayres just been on. He was the manager. He was Brownie's manager at Halifax, so he got Phil Brown to ring me unofficially. And he said, we've come in for you, but want to get you on loan first. But Birdie wants $5,000. I said, that's interesting. Like, he said, would you be interested? I said, well, I'd certainly be interested in the loan bit first to see how things go, because I've never lived out of Blackhall, to be honest. Ordinary Blackhall, I didn't know what it would be like. But I said, I'd certainly give it a thought. Yeah. She says, but obviously this phone call's never happened. Well, yeah, no problem. So days go by, Birdie hasn't pulled me in. So I goes in to see Birdie. I says, has anything happened? Like, no, nobody's come in for you. And I'm like, all right. She said, so nobody's coming for you, so you're going to have to sit tight and like work harder. So work harder. Gets a phone call from Doncaster. Would I be interested? Same. I just want to play at this. So weeks go by again. That goes in to see Birdie. Anything happened? Not one club coming for you. So this was destroying my confidence, to be fair. But I knew clubs had been coming for us, but officially I couldn't say, So in the end, I just said, right. And then I got a chance towards the end of the season. I played with a pot on, broke my wrist against Exeter, and I had this massive pot on. And I played with a pot on for about 6 or 7 games, whatever it was. That was 87. And I signed a new contract in the summer, So that was it, really.
Did you ever speak to anyone at the clubs, for example, Phil Brown at Halifax? Did you ever speak to anyone to say, like, have the club rejected the offers, or did anything change in the interim? Did anything happen like that?
No, like I say, because Birdie kept denying it, and I couldn't prove it because
couldn't say anything.
Because I couldn't say anything, to be fair, you know what I mean? Because that would have got Brownie into trouble, and it would have got Billy Ayres into trouble, because it was unofficial. But it goes on, to be fair. All he'd rang to say, would I be interested?
Yeah.
If I'd said, no, I'm not interested, that would have been a conversation dead, to be fair. And I just said, look, I just want to play. I'd be very interested in coming on loan to see where it goes, if I come on loan first. So then I'm expecting John Bird to get me in and say, Halifax is coming for you. But he kept saying, no, like destroying us. Like, look, you can't be that good, really, because nobody's come in for you. He said, put you on the list and nobody's come in for you. But I knew they had. But so again, like I say, I was just coming towards the end of my contract. It looked like nothing's going to happen here, to be fair. It was just, and like I say, I broke my wrist against Exeter, and I played with them. Honestly, it was a massive pot. Wouldn't get away with it these days, because they put like this I think it was that bubble wrap round it, to be fair, and a bandage. And in the end, it was like 5 times the size of what the pot was. Um, but like I say, that in the end, I signed a contract and just got on with things, and that's the way it went.
Certainly, and one of your most famous moments in a Pulse shirt came after that at Sunderland, where a corner was taken. Not necessarily quickly, as the more famous, well, I say more famous, certainly isn't for Paulsboro's a famous corner once went at Anfield,
Mm,
where it was taken quickly. But the corner that you took went straight in, won the game in February 1988.
mm,
And there was quite a famous quote from Dennis Smith afterwards, who was manager of Sunderland at the time, basically ordering the TV networks not to show the goal
mm.
because it was in those days that Sunderland, whilst they may not have had a divine right to beat Hartlepool United, it felt in that way that it was almost a foregone conclusion at the time.
No, it was certainly a cup shock, to be fair, because, like I say, the fact that they were in the third division at the time, playing in I think it was the Sherpa Van or Freight Rover, whatever it was at the time, kept changing the name every year.
It's that
Uh,
one. Yeah, it's that one.
yeah.
Whatever it was.
And they won the league that year, and they were going for the double, you know what I mean? And the fans wanted to go to Wembley, and yeah, it was a bit of a foregone conclusion. Yes, it was a fluky goal, but no one can deny that Hartlepool deserved to win that night. We were the better side. We dealt with the wind better. And like I say, he put in the paper, well, he told the press at the press conference that you don't put this on the television tomorrow. Look north or Tyne News or whatever it was. Don't, or you'll never get another interview from me. And they also put in the paper that the players will have to live with the stigma of being beaten by Hartlepool at home in a quarter final of a cup. So yeah, and I hadn't seen the goal till not long ago. I was going around on my YouTube or whatever it was. So I never, like I say, I hadn't seen it. I didn't know what it looked like or how, but I obviously know now. But yeah, he did. He come out and said that their players would have to live with the stigma of getting beat by Pools.
And as you've said, the goal wasn't shown. It wasn't on networks or anything like that. So clearly they made the request and they took it very seriously at the time.
Oh, yeah. Like I say, I was good at it, to be honest, because I had my old Betamax video recorder ready to tape it. But they just, I think it was on the news on the night, they just said, oh, just reported on the game, but they never actually showed it, which was a shame, to be honest. Like, but nah, it's not to worry. At the end of the day, the history books will tell you that we beat them at Roker Park.
Fair point. And in the 89-90 season, there was a return of Cyril Knowles, this time at Hartlepool rather than the other club. And there was two contrasting quotes that you received when you got the injury, which kept you out for quite a while. Cyril Knowles said that you should pack it in. And then the physio, Gary Henderson, told you the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And obviously he helped you on your recovery from that. What was the mindset at the time in terms of you had your manager saying that it looked like it was over, you had your physio trying to motivate it from the other side, and clearly you listened to the physio because you went on to the promotion season.
Yeah, well, I mean, I knew Cyril's, reasonings were, in the best interest because I'd had just had a little daughter, and he didn't want me to be like. His words were, "Look, you're very well thought of at Hartlepool. You don't want to let your standards drop. You don't want to be limping and not being the player you were." So I kind of get that, like the thought that he possibly wanted me out of the club, but in a good way. You know what I mean? Where it's like it's like he was. I think he was trying to look after my best interest. To be fair, in fact, like I say, he got me in the referee's room and had a long mirror and he just said, look at your knee, it's red and deformed, and it was swollen. And anything I was trying to get back, I just it wasn't working. You know what I mean? It was like trying this, trying that. So obviously, I had another year. I think I was about a year and a half left on my contract, so I wasn't in a hurry to do anything. I didn't have to do anything, and I just went and told her. Probably at the time, I was like ready to do it as well. Like, to be fair, it's just. But I went to tell Gary Henderson. He said, "Well, look, just sit tight. We have got another surgeon to go at. Montgomery, the Professor Montgomery again, funnily enough, he was based at Darlington. And he says, I was seeing this other one, and he was just like, oh no. He told us to pack in as well, to be honest. So then I went to see a new surgeon. Gary Anderson said, we'll go see this new surgeon. And it was down Scorton, down Richmond way down near Catterick, and it was a hospital run by monks, like a monastery. So it was funny enough. It was St. Patrick's Day. It was a spring day. I went in on a Saturday morning. Pools were playing Scunthorpe away on the day, and I knew it was make or break. To be fair, I knew like if this went wrong, that was it. To be fair, but ever the positive. Just let's just see what happens. So I went to another knife, and I was on the bed recovering from the anaesthetic, and there's these two monks come round, and like, "Hello, Brian, how are you?" And I was like, "Damn, man, this is good anaesthetic. This, to be fair, don't know what's happening here, to be fair." And then the surgeon come round, and he said, "Crack on, mate." And I was like, "Am I still dreaming? You know what? This is crack on." He says, "What it was, there was a lot of debris, a lot of bone fragments lodged in behind your kneecap, quite minor, to be fair, which should have been cleared out a long, long time ago. I flushed your knee out, go home, let it settle down, crack on, go and have a good career." And I was like, wow, like, did he really say that? Is this good anaesthetic? Because 5 minutes ago, I've seen two monks bending over me bed, and now he's telling me to crack on with my career. Like, so I didn't know whether I was dreaming, whether I was high as a kite or what. And I mean, he just got better. Like, see, it just literally just a minor operation of cleaning all the debris out, sorted it out. So we rested. Like I say, that was the March time. We did nothing in terms of like playing. We just did rehab. I used to go to the Millhouse gym every other day, do weights, and then as soon as the season finished and everybody went on the holidays, I upped my work. And I was in, well, it was Italian 90, it was that year. And I was in every day, Seaton, the sand dunes at Seaton, Crimden Steps, Castle Eden, Millhouse Gym, dock runs, which were quite famous at the time. I was breaking records, beating times, and felt absolute top of the world. And that pre-season, we went to Catterick, and it's the first time we'd ever done the beep test. Nobody had ever heard of it, you know what I mean? And I won it by an absolute mile, and everybody was like, "Wow, what have you been doing all summer?" The dock run records, the times, I was smashing all them. And yeah, so that was the start of the promotion season, but still wasn't getting a game, you know what I mean? Still in and out at the start of the season. But eventually got in, and come the end of the season, it was dream time, to be fair.
Absolutely. And with regards to the bleep test, obviously I've never done it and never will. I mean, look at me. I'm never going to be in that set. I'm never going to be in that shape. That's why I record podcasts instead of playing football. But I think if anyone ever went to English Martyrs, I don't know how far back this goes, but certainly around my time, the equivalent will have been the Cooper's run, which was
Yeah.
horrific.
Yeah.
I mean, it was running around the length of the AstroTurf as many times as you could in 12 minutes, and
Yeah.
everyone was knackered by the end of it. And specifically when people were walking, the teachers didn't really like that. And they said, well, if anyone walks, you'll do it again. And it was not ideal for the person who was lagging behind the rest of the group.
Yeah,
elders.
To be fair, like, I knew exactly what was coming because I knew what Cyril's pre-season would be like. I knew it would be absolutely boot camp brutality, to be fair. But again, because I'd done the work, I think it surprised everybody, to be fair, including Cyril. Like, I think he did not expect me to be in the shape I was, you know what I mean? The knee was good. Not 100%, don't get me wrong. I still had to take anti-inflammatories and stuff like that, but enough to get by. And I had to change my game a little bit, before the injury, I was a flying winger, you know what I mean? I wasn't pacey, but I was quick. But I had to change my game a little bit, you know what I mean? I couldn't go past people anymore, so I had to play a little bit more clever, knock the ball in early, you know what I mean? Maybe bounce a little 1-2 in or whatever. But I had to change my game. Yeah, so like I say, the rest is history. That year from the pre-season. Again, like I say, it was a little bit disheartened at the start because I wasn't getting in. He's putting people, Kenny Davis was getting the game before me, and still a little bit disheartened at the start. I was fully fit now, but still wasn't getting a game. And then I just got in, and then I just seemed to stay in after that.
Yes, and one of the games that season, which didn't go Paul's way, but in fairness, you wouldn't have expected it to, was the cup tie against Tottenham, when Paul Gascoigne turned in what many people, certainly Paul's fans and others, say is one of his greatest ever performances in terms of just how he sparkled on the pitch. What was it like to basically see it?
Well, it was just after Italian 90, funnily enough, so we'd seen him on the telly, and breathtaking in that. But to see him in the flesh, good Lord, he was just absolutely unplayable, unbelievable. You know, the best I've ever seen, to be fair. But again, an odd story about that night was we'd obviously lost 5-0, I think it was, or 5-1, maybe, I can't
I think
remember.
it was 5-0. I haven't written it
5-0.
down, but I think it was 5-0.
5-0, yeah, because I think Gary Lineker missed a penalty for them and Bakes missed a chance for us. It could have actually scored. Anyway, yeah, so there was a knock on the door. Cyril was actually giving us a good rollick, and it didn't matter whether it was like against Tottenham, we lost 5-0. He was going mental, to be fair. You know, I mean, there's a knock on the door, and Tottenham at the time was sponsored by Holston Pills,
Yes.
the beer company, and he's Gazza at the door with a crate of and it was the wrong time to knock on the door when Cyril was like in full flow. To be fair, knocked on the door, and just put his head around him, put a crate of Holston Pills in the dressing room for the lads. You know what I mean? Which went down well with us, but not too good with Cyril. So anyway, on that night we were staying down the night after the game, which was quite rare for us. You know, we were normally on the bus and back, but I think it was because obviously a bit of an occasion, and we due to go back to the hotel for a meal. But Gaza lived at the hotel where we were staying.
Yeah.
Waltham Abbey, the Swallow Hotel at Waltham Abbey. Well, see, he lived there. He had a room there basically. So after he's dropped these bottles of beer in the dressing room, he's gone. You know what I mean? So anyway, we get in the bus, go back to the hotel, and here's Gaza sitting in the corner of the bar. Lads, he's just waving us in. He said, "It's about 18 pints of lager lined up for all the lads." He says, we can't come in. We have to go and have a meal with a gaffer and stuff like that. So we had the meal, and then Gaza and Joe Allen were there till about 5 o'clock in the morning, to be honest. But yeah, happy times, to be fair.
I mean, to be fair, if you offered a night out with Paul Gascoigne, I don't think there's many, certainly in the football world, who would reject that.
At that time, excuse me, 1990, unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. To see him live, only about 6 weeks after seeing him on the telly against all them games in Italia 90, was absolutely unbelievable. He's fit, he's quick and everything. His first touch, everything about him, he used class, he used confidence. But people don't realize he's generous soul as well. Good person.
Absolutely, and it's a shame he didn't win more at national level, because realistically, that team that we had, we should have won. We should have won more.
And I mean, people say individually as well. Man United were after him. Would he have won lots of medals if he went to Man United? Would he have been the same player? But certainly on what I've seen, and I've been in his company since then as well. You know what I mean? Proper generous soul. It's very, very sad to see him the way he is at this moment in time. He looks frail, and probably the drinks got the better of him, to be fair. But at the time, generous person.
Yeah, and moving on from Gaza, we've got the rest of the season. Obviously, went Paul's way. The final game is one that lives along the memory of a lot of people at home to Northampton, when we won 3-1 and secured promotion there. How did it again? I've referenced this before in terms of the squad building and whether things looked as though they were building up to a point. But did it feel that season as though it was going to happen at any point? I know the cliche is to take it one game at a time. I've heard that many times from managers in the past. But was it a feeling amongst the lads of this could happen, this will happen?
No, not at all, because we were mid-table, to be fair. And again, it's very, very unfortunate. Cyril took ill, I mean, he was poorly. We didn't know anything about it at the time, to be fair. He was there one day, and then the next day he didn't come in,
Yeah.
And again, I've probably been misquoted at the time, but we were middle of the road at the time, but Alan Murray took over. And again, Alan Murray was commercial manager, but just a different way of promoting Pop Robson to do some coaching. And it was just a different way. But like I say, at the time, we were mid-table. And then all of a sudden, Alan Murray was like saying to me and Paul Dalton, two good players used to, he was building us up and building our confidence up. And from then, it was game at a time. But at the time, I think it was January, February, nobody thought it would even nowhere near getting promoted, but we went on an absolutely unbelievable run to take us into the top end. And even leading into that Northampton game, like you say, We could have won and not gone up. We could have got beat and still gone up. There was loads of permutations, you know. We got the job done by beating Northampton, and I think it might have been Torquay or Blackpool. They lost their games. So we ended up going up, and it was, yeah, like I say, it was a great time to be a Pools player. Probably a great time to be a Pools fan as well. You know what I mean? That summer of '91 was fantastic, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, as you mentioned, the run that you went on at the end of the season, it was the last defeat was on the 16th of March against Blackpool at
Blackpool.
home, where Rob McKinnon scored for
Mm,
Pulls. But after that, you scored twice in a game against Maidstone away in a
mm,
4-1 victory. And from that point on, there was 14 games, including the Maidstone game, won 10 and drew 4
mm.
and didn't lose one. So
Yeah,
realistically, that was where it changed at the time.
absolutely. Yeah, you're right, Jack. Oh, but even to be fair, even the Blackpool game we should have won. We were the better team by an absolute mile. But yeah, but again, we're going about coaching and recovery and all that, you know, sports science and all that palaver that comes out. We were playing 2 games a week, well, 3 if you count Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday.
Yeah.
And the manager would say, "Have Monday off, you know, come for the match on Tuesday." We'd do win that, probably have Wednesday off, light session Thursday, light session Friday, and it was just games, play, managers. I never forget. Same team, same subs. That was the team talk. Didn't matter who we're playing against. Same team, same subs. Get the ball wide to Brian and Daltz and Robbie and Nobsy, and put it in the box. Bakes would invariably go for a challenge, and Joanne had about 37 tap ins that year, you know. So we didn't complicate things. We got the ball wide. We put the ball in the box. Um, and it was confidence. It just grew and grew and grew. And like I say, that summer of '91, I was opening gardening fates and presentations, and felt like a celebrity for once. You know what I mean? But it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
And as we've mentioned already, you did win the Player of the Year that season as well. Was it again one of those where, you know, I'd say an honour. I mean,
Mm.
that feels like a bit of a pun and a
Yeah,
bit of
yeah.
a say given yourself,
No,
but you know, it was again a recognition of what had
yeah,
happened.
especially that year as well. You know what I mean? Joe scored, whatever he scored, 40 odd goals or whatever, and he won the Northeast Player of the Year. Joe, out of all the players in the Northeast,
Yeah.
so to win it in that sort of company in a promotion year was unbelievable. And again, if you'd said at the start that summer, remember I was like, you know, just coming back and putting all them hard yards in while everybody was away from the club and not getting a game at the start of the season at Chesterfield, and then in and out at the start of the season with Cyril, and then all of a sudden go getting in the team, growing in confidence, scoring goals, creating goals. It was like, again, it was like, you know, a fairy tale come true, really.
Yes, and before we move on, final words on Cyril Knowles, as of course he unfortunately passed away before, actually I think it was just at the start of the season, 1992,
Hmm.
sorry, 1991, 92, and I believe was it the manager, was it Alan Murray who came into the dressing room
Hmm.
pre or post game to say, and clearly it was a distressing time as well, but was there anything that sticks in your head about sort
But
of the
yeah, I
atmosphere at the
just remember it
time?
was Bradford away, wasn't it?
Yes.
We always used to go for a pre-match meal. And he just called the mate and just said, "Look, Cyril." We knew he was poorly, to be fair, you know what I mean? But I don't think anybody ever got the chance to see him. You know, we weren't allowed to visit or anything like that. Um, and I was sad, you know, like I say, people paint this thing that, you know, me and Cyril didn't get on. We got on. I just respected him, you know what I mean? I just don't think deep down he really rated me as a player. I think come towards the end, um, you know, at pools when I was like in the groove, if you like, he saw what, you know, a half decent player I was. Never brilliant, but I was just a trier. And I think he appreciated that in the end, you know what I mean? And we got on. It was no problem at all, absolutely. And it was devastating to hear, you know what I mean? It was probably really sad as well, you know, to hear that he suffered for a couple of months as well, you know. And it was a shock, even though, like I say, we knew he was poorly, and it was really sad day.
Yes, and moving on to a game that you played against Sheffield Wednesday, which a lot of people know more recently as, you know, the Cardiff opponents and what happened
Mm,
there. But
mm,
in 1992, in October time, there was an incident with Carlton Palmer
mm.
that may stick in your head there.
Yeah, yeah.
What exactly happened that led to
To be
that?
fair, he's Carlton's probably like me, you know, he's made the best of his talents, you know what I mean? He wasn't
Yes.
a great player, neither was I. And I took the ball off him right in front of the Millhouse paddock, kicking towards the rink end, and I just robbed him of the ball and just beeline for the box. And we were always taught, and he'll know this better than me, if you get a little tug in the, if anybody touches you in the box, just go over. We were taught that. Our coaches taught that.
Yeah.
And he caught me from behind and tripped me over, and we ended up getting a penalty. Anyway, he basically accused me of diving. So I've like stood up after he's brought me off the penalty. He's got hold of me by the throat and pushed me to the floor. So then obviously the game goes on and the argument carries on, and how many houses have you got and how many cars have you got and stuff like that, and just generally being a big shot. How do you manage on £100? What a dumb Hartlepool is, and you're playing for £100 and all that, and like even his own players like Chris Waddle and Danny Wilson, and like, will you shut up? You've been an absolute prat, to be fair. You know what I mean? Well, that was one thing he said to me. He said, "Where were you in the summer?" Reference, and like I said, well, I went to Butlins with a wife and kids. Well, he says I was in the Euros, Euro '92 it was, and I went, "Oh, where were you?" I said, "Not on my telly, you weren't." But he was, and he was just going on and on, bragging about his houses and how he gets people to come in and cut his grass and how many cars he's got, what his wages were, and stuff like that. But to be fair, it got out to the press, which was a bit unfortunate because it never come from me. It was like Gary Gibson, who I'd told, who was the chairman at the time. He did like a talk in after the game. There was like where the Victoria Lounge used to be. I think it's the Friends of Hartlepool Bar now. There, he had made it into like a corporate thing at the time. He just had me on the mic at the end and said what happened, and I just told him. And then obviously that leaked to the press, you know what I mean, which was never my intention, to be honest. Like, rather keep things in house. But Carlton is doing the rounds at the minute, doing these after dinner speeches and things like that, and he's telling a few lies about it. Like one he's saying Ron Atkinson was the manager. It was Trevor Francis. Once he was, they were in danger of going out. Well, they beat us 3-0 in the first leg, and they were 2-0 at the time. And he said he was sober. He wasn't. He played all the games, so they were 5-0 up. And his tale is that Ron Atkinson pulled him. He was sober and said, "We're in danger of going out this competition. I need you to go on and rattle a few feathers." And then he went on and rattled me. Just total fabrication, to be fair. But like I say, if he wants to sell pie and peas dinners, but certainly wasn't the right way.
Yeah, well, you do what you can to sell tickets, I suppose. But
yeah.
I mean, yeah, if you're 5-0 up, I don't think you really need to come on and save the tie. I think
no, and he wasn't even sober, and Ron Atkinson wasn't even the manager. So,
but did he get the name of the ground right? Did he get the name of the club right?
Well, I think he called us also. I think that's what the reference to the ground. I mean, it wasn't the nice stadium it is now, to be fair. It was a little bit run down, shall we say? But I mean, it was. Like, listen. Chrissy Waddle had a miles better career than him, as did Danny Wilson, and they were like model pros. You know what I mean? And I've been in plenty footballers' companies, better players than him. Gaza being one.
Absolutely.
Who've conducted themselves a lot better than that. You know what I mean? But hey ho.
Yeah, well, it's in the past. And later on that season, in the January, was the FA Cup tie against Crystal Palace, which was trotted out quite recently in 2022 when we played them away. And pretty much everyone looked back on the meeting in 1993 where Saville scored the penalty. And again, Pools went through. And it was another one of those, as with Sunderland in 88, where, again, Palace were very well favoured to win the match and obviously didn't work out that way.
Yeah, I think we deserved it. I mean, it was a very dubious penalty when I look back. I think I'd be very disappointed if it was given against us, but we did deserve to win the game. I just knew we'd have a chance because I remember coming to the ground at +1, whatever it was, and the Crystal Palace players had been on the pitch for a pitch inspection, and they were coming in towards their back into the dressing room, if you like, and they were like, Gareth Southgate was one, and Richard Shaw was one. And they were like, "I can't believe it's on. The referee's put it on." It was born hard. It's no way is that playable. And I went out and I was like, "What's the problem?" Like, to be fair, it wasn't. Yeah, it was a little bit crispy on top, and probably if it was a Division 1 Premier League game, that might have been called off. But it had all our ingredients for a good cup tie, and I just knew we'd have a chance once I'd heard them saying it shouldn't be played, and they didn't quite fancy it on the day. You know what I mean? So yeah, a good result, good performance, quite historic win. But again, fully deserved.
And again, you mentioned about the choice state of the pitch, but I mean, we've seen some bad pitches recently as well. But it's very much the magic of the cup, isn't it? Where a team that is used to playing on, for want of a better word, carpets
Mm.
for the very well looked after pitches, and they come to a ground that certainly doesn't have that. It doesn't have the glamour of the
Mm.
Premier League. And again, it was the early days of the Premier League, so they were still in the early days of the money, etc. But again, it's just a great leveler of the FA Cup, isn't it? Where a team can come to a lower league team and they don't know what could
No,
happen.
yeah. It's the magic of the FA Cup, isn't it? Which has lost its glamour a little bit these days, to be fair. But no, man. Again, if you ever get the chance to look at there's a promotion video from 1991. If you ever get a chance to look at that and have a look at the pitch, the Victoria Ground pitch, it was like a mud bath every game. We used to get the fire brigade in to water up the middle and leave the wings in the fullback areas rock hard solid. So we didn't know what studs, whether we were moldies, long studs, or whatever. But I mean, it was an absolute mud bath. But we adapted to it. I mean, we got promoted on that. But like I say, if you ever get the chance to see that, you'll see what bad pitches are. But we managed okay. It was all right.
No, certainly. And coming towards the end of the playing career, there was the retirement and the testimonial, which came against Newcastle. I
Mm,
can't think why. And there was a lot of tribute in the testimonial from the likes of Rob McKinnon and
mm,
Brian Robson, Alan Murray, Harold Hornsey, the physio that we've already mentioned, Gary Henderson, obviously Billy Horner, Joe Allen, people he played with. There were people from the press, from Newcastle themselves. And reading those, first of all, I imagine that you didn't know perhaps who specifically was going to be in at the time.
mm.
I don't imagine they told you. I'd imagine that would have been a
No.
surprise. And secondly, then when you did read it, were you surprised about the range of people that flagged from further afield as well?
Yeah, absolutely, Jack. Yeah, I didn't know nothing about them because obviously my testimonial committee sorted everything out. You know what I mean? Programs and interviews and venues and everything were absolutely fantastic. So I didn't know anything about that until I'd read the program on the day. Yeah, and I was quite like, wow, shocked and proud, if you like. You know what I mean? And it was brilliant to hear these. But I think what people liked about me was, again, and I'm not, trying to be a fake humble here. I was never a fantastic footballer, but I was always a trier. I was always one of them that, good, bad, or indifferent in terms of my form or my passing or my whatever, my performance. I could always look in the mirror and say, well, I did give 100%, and I think if I'm looking at a footballer these days, I'm thinking, well, if he runs his heart out and, gives his lot and, leaves absolutely nothing left on the pitch, then he'll do for me, regardless of his ability. He'll do for me, and that's what I was, and I think that's why the Hartlepool public, took to me, if you like. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
just tried again. Like I say, I had loads and loads and loads of bad games, um, but always give 100%. I can guarantee that there's nobody will give more to the game, to the club, to the fans than what I did. Tried to do anyway. And I think that's what made me popular amongst the fans.
Well, certainly. I mean, if I think we've mentioned it already, but if you're available and you give 100% all of the time, the fans can forgive a few bad games. It's a matter of caring about the club, about the town, and obviously the fans who pay to go and see every week. And say in the case of yourself, gave 100%. You had I mean, the promotion certainly helps, but
Mm.
you had the desire and the commitment to the club and the town, and I'm sure that a lot of the fans appreciate that. There was also a word in the testimonial from Kevin Keegan at the time as well.
Mm.
It's quite a long testimonial, so it's a bit thingy to read it all out. He says that it was Lee Clark who first asked if he could help you out with his testimonial, and at the end of the day, it's things like that. I mean, Kevin Keegan's another one we mentioned about Paul Gascoigne not winning things. See, Kevin Keegan, it was, I think, just before his entertainers days, wasn't it, in Newcastle, where the testimonial happened, and obviously he went on to,
Mm.
shall we say, I think the polite word is meltdown in that
Mm.
press conference.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, again, it was another one of those where it's such a popular figure at the time, and he's there for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll never forget. I had an appointment to go up and meet him about the testimonial as well, and it was it was about 2 days after we stood on the steps about the sale of Andy Cole
Yes.
at St James's Park. So I've gone in like not knowing like is he in a good mood, is he a bad mood or what, and he's just absolutely open and friendly. Never seen anything like it. And he said, you've sold Andy Cole. I went, yeah, yeah. Didn't know what to say, to be honest. He said, but don't worry, Brian, as a Newcastle fan, we will replace him. And he says, I'm going to sign big in the summer. And I says, I'll guarantee that that player, won't be seen in a Newcastle shirt until he's played in his testimony. So what I'm saying is, whoever I sign will make his debut
In
that
the
day. And
testimonial.
it turned out it was Les Ferdinand, to be honest. So he made his debut in my testimonial, not his debut, as in league debut, but he hadn't played for Newcastle until that day, and he kept his promise, Fantastic. Oh, Kevin was so generous, so well, obviously, like I say, he knew what lower leagues were like. He started off at Scunthorpe United, and again, he was small in stature, and again, he wasn't probably the best technical player, and again, he had to make the most of his fitness and his heart and his character, and there's similarities, to be fair.
Absolutely, and so he always seems like a canny fellow whenever you see him. It's a shame it didn't work out from at national level as well as Paul Gascoigne. There's a theme running through England here, isn't
Mm.
there, with the national team? But it's again one of those. There was a move towards management and coaching at the time with
Mm.
Paul's, and it's safe to say it didn't really work out
Yeah,
from the
yeah,
management side of
yeah, yeah.
things. But was that something you'd always wanted to go into in terms of the management side, not only the coaching side, but
Uh,
the management side? And did that sort of knock your confidence as such when it obviously didn't work out as you might have hoped?
No, no, not really, Jack. To be fair, it was just a case of like I was in and around the club at the time, you know what I mean? And I was like, oh, who'll do it in an interim basis, you know what I mean? But it's not something I really, really love, to be fair, you know what I mean? You've got to leave people out, you've got to upset people, and don't mind doing that, you know what I mean? But no, I think it was just probably because I was a, popular figure. I was in and around the club anyway. And, let's just see how Brian goes, to be fair, you know what I mean? And then I went into non-league management a little bit, you know what I mean? But no, I'd give anything to go back 40 years and be playing, because that's the
Absolutely.
ultimate. Managing and coaching is just a poor substitute, in my opinion. A lot of people love it, you know what I mean? But like I said, it's not for me now.
And looking at the family side as well, the reason you're here in person today is because your wife is the technical support. Unfortunately,
Yeah, yeah,
she wasn't available this morning.
yeah,
But there was a story about when your child was born in 1988, and you couldn't have been further away
yeah.
from the place there, because that was back in the day where if you had games sort of further afield, in this case it was Torquay and Exeter, you
Mm,
usually played them in a very short space of time, so you didn't have to travel down
yeah.
twice, etc. And what was the feeling like when it was sort of announced and you found out that she'd gone into labour at the time, that you
Yeah.
were down there? Did it feel like almost sod's law, like an inevitability that you'd be as far away as that when it
Yeah,
happened?
we'd spoke about this, to be fair, you know what I mean? But again, it was never, in the mindset of like, oh, well, if you're going to Labour, I'm coming back. It was just play football, you know what I mean? That's what you do. Just, leave you know, leave them to deliver the baby, and she's in good hands, and the in-laws are there, and my mum was there, so there's nothing I could really do about it, to be fair, you know what I mean? But yeah, them were the days when probably Torquay would come up here in the midweek and play us and Darlington, that sort of thing. So we went
Yeah.
down, and like I say, that we spoke about like, I wonder what would happen if you're going to Labour while I'm down Torquay. So yeah, sod's law, it did happen, to be fair, you know what I mean? But there's never, well, like I say, there's no chance of me getting home anyway, It was,
So that'd have been a very fast bus, shall we say, at the time if that had happened.
uh,
But yeah, I mean, again, it's just one of those life things, isn't it? Things happen, and clearly it's worked out well.
well, yeah,
Yeah,
things change, I mean, I hear of like, modern day players like missing matches, because the wife's gone into labour and that, like, and it just wasn't done when we played, I mean, you know what I mean? You just you see the baby when you get back, you know what I mean? And that was the mindset then, Never really entered my head to try and jump on a train and get back, and or the planes were there available then, but just didn't, I wasn't like knocking on the manager's door at the time, his hotel room, John Burdick was, saying, "Can I go home and see the wife and baby?" It was like, I'll see you on Saturday night. Unfortunately, when we got back, I was lucky enough that the staff at Cameron's Hospital, Hartlepool. So obviously we got back about 2 o'clock in the morning at the time, so we travelled back from Torquay, and they let me sneak into the water to see my wife Janet and daughter Sarah, so that was kind of them.
Very good. And I think we've come to the end of my bit, certainly. But when I first put the notice out, there were a couple of messages sent privately from Bert and Pauline, who have been waiting very patiently and have messaged me since asking when you're arriving. So, again, just to point out a couple of things. Firstly, they've mentioned about Sunderland, which we've already spoken about, but Bert says he was there when that happened. And they're asking what one of you, if you have doesn't have to be one favourite match, because again, when you've played 384 times, it may be difficult to narrow it down to one, but is there one particularly that sticks in your head?
It's got to be the Northampton game, I think, to be fair.
You might say that.
Further, I mean, people might say the Sunderland game because that was a big game, but no, the Northampton game, for the fans, I mean, I think that people said, "Oh, what's 7,000 in?" Well, I'd like a £5 extra for their for every other one that was in, because it was absolutely rammed, absolutely rammed. We could sense there was something different, because when you go for a warm up, normally there's about 50 in the ground, you know what I mean? But this time when we went for a warm up at like 2:15, the ground was full, it was absolutely rammed. And, the aftermatch parties, the aftermatch, going down Church Street with the fans. And that was, for me, it was just a culmination of like the hard work I put in, that summer, working with Gary Henderson, going to Catterick Army Camp, having the lows of like, not getting in, having the highs of, scoring a couple of goals as well. But certainly, from my point of view and the link with the fans and what it did to the town at the time was certainly the Northampton game.
Lovely. And another question. Again, it's very difficult to say, would you raise your game for anyone? Because at the end of the day, you play well against everyone. You try your best against everyone. Was there any particular team, or potentially from like a prior incident, etc.? Was there any particular team that you thought like, I need to beat these. We must beat these. Like it was in your head that it had to happen.
Yeah, it was always Darlington, wasn't it? It was always Darlow.
I didn't want to put your words in your mouth, but I was shooting, but that was.
Yeah, it was always Darlington, to be honest. Local derbies, especially for me, because obviously I'd been let go from Darlington,
Yeah.
And people always wonder, going back right to the start, Jack, to be honest, how I ended up at like Darlington, which was like miles away from like Horden where I live, and Hartlepool's on the doorstep. It was just mainly because like Hartlepool at the time they had a youth policy, but a lot of them were part-timers, like Sir Kenny Lowe, Andy Linnigan, Dave Lee, had a great youth team, Hartlepool. In fact, they won the league. They won the league with Newcastle were in that league, Leeds, Middlesbrough, Sunderland. Hartlepool won the league, so they had a great youth policy. But I needed a job, you know what I mean? So that's how I ended up going to Darlington. Never a Darlington fan or anything like that. Never when I played for Darlington against Hartlepool, never, took any pleasure or wasn't pumped up or anything to beat Hartlepool. But the other way around, and in fact, some of my worst games were against Darlington because I was too motivated, to be honest. Wanted to go around kicking everybody. So yeah, it was always a special occasion when we played against Darlington, and I really hope that them games come back soon. Not hoping that Pools go down, but Darlington come up, and so we can have them games, because I think that it would be brilliant for both sets of fans. To be fair, both sets of fans have had a lot of bad years of late. Similar sort of clubs, and it would be great to see them play in the National League or in the Football League quite soon.
I was going to say, if we are going to play them again, I don't think anyone would want us to go down.
No,
because
no.
obviously we've staved off that. I think the last couple of results we're unbeaten in for. It looks like we've gotten away from that now, and I don't think that's going to happen.
No. I was not. To be fair, I was never in doubt anyway.
It never looked likely, but obviously, given
you never know
the club, honestly, it's one of those where
you
would never rule anything out.
You wouldn't be surprised, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But one of the other question as well was, oh yeah, do you still go to pubs to watch from time to time these days?
No, if I'm honest, Jack, not as much as I used to. I obviously used to do the commentary with Mark Simpson, sorry. And obviously he left the club, and sort of when he left the club, I kind of like found other things to do. I've got 2 grandkids now that keep me busy on a Saturday afternoon. So no, I don't go as much as I used to, but still watch out for the results. Still got a lot of fans and a lot of friends who are poolies. And I was looking through my phone book the other day, and I've got more Hartlepool fans in there than I've got Hartlepool players. You know what I mean? So just like I say, great reputation with the supporters. Love them, absolutely love them to bits. You know what I mean? They're loyal. Brilliant. But no, the answer to the question is no. I don't go as much.
Yeah, and to be fair, with regards to sort of going to polls, obviously, if that's not the case, people find things to do these days.
Mm.
But in terms of your old colleagues, sort of, you've mentioned about Paul Baker already with the Newcastle jacket there.
Mm.
Is there like, do you see any of them? Like, do you message any on
Yeah,
like sort of a semi-regular basis, if you like?
yeah. I mean, I've just had a holiday at Tenerife in February, and Paul Olsen was there. We met up, and Robbie, he's godfather to my two daughters. Bakes comes to, on our annual trip to Magaluf every year, as does Mick Tate. You know what I mean? Joe keeps in touch. Mick Smith keeps in touch. Don't see them as much, you know what I mean?
No.
But certainly see Bakes once or twice a year. Ollie go on holiday with him, you know what I mean? Ring Robbie, text Robbie every couple of weeks, So yeah, it's still keep in touch. Still good men, good people. Not only like say the likes of Rob McKinnon, Paul Baker, Paul Olsen. Not only were they good players, we good lads, you know what I mean? And that's what I think got us over the line in 1991. Good lads,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Good, fought for each other, scrapped for each other, and certainly partied with each other as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that's necessarily missing because it's a bit harsh to say that there are no nice people in football anymore. But do you think that sort of that dressing room culture as such, it, not necessarily missing, but do you think that it's not become as important as sort of tactics and making sure people are in a system and getting that system in? Like, do you think expression's sort of gone out of football
Yeah,
slightly?
characters, yeah. And, like, I can't vouch for pros because they haven't been down. But I follow football and I know what goes on. You know what I mean. But sometimes old school's all right. You know what I mean. Put the ball in the box and let you give your centre forward a chance instead of like having the stats of like possession and no shots at goal and you know what
Absolutely.
I mean. And sports science and that. Sometimes you can go overboard on it a little bit. You know what I mean. People say I'm a dinosaur and that, but sometimes old school's all right. You know what I mean? Good dressing rooms will maybe get you 10 points a season.
Well, just shoot. Just
Yeah,
shoot. Like,
yeah.
honestly, like, you can pass the ball 300 times in a row,
Mm,
but if you're not having a shot or it's not going anywhere near the box, what's
mm,
the point? I
yeah.
mean, especially when you're passing it around the back
Mm.
and
Oh,
specifically near your own goal, like, it's basically kamikaze
yeah.
football.
If Mick Smith tried that back in 1991, we'd probably have heart attacks, to be honest, you know what I mean? But, to be fair, you talk about, possession and all that. I could probably go in and sit in the middle of a midfield now at 60-year-old and pass the ball 5 yards sideways and not have much running. Again, we were told Keith Nobbs, Brian Honor, Rob McKinnon, Paul Dalton in the wide positions, put it in the box. And if Paul Baker or Joe Allen doesn't get on the end of it, then they'll have a problem. And that was how we worked. We didn't work on shape. We didn't work on set players. We had a game plan as a work it wide, get it in the box. And in the box we'd have Paul Baker, Joe Allen. We'd expect Paul Dalton to come round the back post if I was crossing it, and we'd expect Paul Olsen to be arriving as the midfielder. And if we were pushing for a result or trying to get an equaliser, the other midfielder would go in as well. There's no holding midfielders or anything like that, or Claude McAlealy's, or low blocks, high blocks, or whatever they're called, chocker blocks, or whatever. There's nothing like that, you know what I mean? Pre-match routines were like we used to have beans on toast and never suffered from cramp. You know what I mean? Nobody went from cramp, you know what I mean? And now it's all pasta and sweet potatoes and whatever, XG or whatever, holes in the socks. We had holes in the socks in 1991, but there weren't supposed to be holes in the socks.
Just
We had holes in the socks. We had we had ice baths and things like that, but it was just because we had no hot water. So we were pioneers really, but I don't think we were meant to do it. But I wouldn't swap my time, to be fair. I wouldn't swap my time. I see all players now with the flip-flops on and headphones and wash bags and six packs and selfies and not for me, to be fair. Not for me.
Oh, fair enough. And there is a mention as well of a goal scored against Stockport in
Mm.
1993, if you remember that one.
Yeah, yeah, it was last minute, wasn't it? Last ditch, to be fair. Um, we were chasing the game. Ian McGuckin had been sent up front, and he just again not playing from the back. We launched it forward. Ian McGuckin got a flick on around about the halfway line, and it just fell nice. I just thought I'll have a dip, to be fair. And short goalkeeper was off his line, went in the roof of the net. You know what I mean? So yeah, probably the best goal I've ever scored, to be fair. But I think, like say, looking back, if I could, you know, have me time again, I would. You know what I mean? I absolutely loved it. You know what I mean? The people I've met, not only players but fans. You know what I mean? I can go down Hartlepool now when people want to talk to Hartlepool, and I've talked about pools, and I've never kicked the ball for 40 odd year. You know, so just again, I was just a trier. Just tried, ran my heart out. You've got them people who support you have paid good money to watch you play. So you've got to at least run your socks off for them. And that's all I did, Jack. To be fair, you know what I mean. There's many better players than me pulled a Pool shirt on, many. But like I say, I just did as everyone, giving 100% like me. That's you know what I mean. And that's why the Poolies loved us. To be fair.
Yeah, I don't think you'll have many people agreeing with you about there being many players to play, many better players to play for the
Mm.
club. Obviously, you've featured in a lot of top lists, if you
Mm.
like, best lists. I think in the centenary poll in 2008, I think I can't remember whereabouts in the top three, but I'm fairly sure you were in the top three. I
Mm.
think you were second, if I
Mm.
remember rightly, because I think Richie Humphries was
Mm.
top.
Mm.
You were second, and Morty Moore from the 50s were
Yeah, yeah,
third.
yeah.
But like I say, there are plenty of people I think who disagree with that assessment of
Yeah, I mean,
you know,
yeah, you're right,
much
Jack.
better players.
Yeah, I mean, better players in the promotion team. Paul Dalton was miles better than me, but I knew my job and I knew what was required. It's like I say, it was just a great time. I look back now, with fondness, but it couldn't have all been, pink fluffy unicorns at the time. Those times when it was hard. But now, when I get the chance, I mean, it's, to have a street named after us as well. You know what I mean? It's like,
True.
wow. It's like I can show my grandkids that. It's and why did I get that? Because I tried hard, not because I was a good footballer, not because I was a frilly and fancy, because I had a big heart and I tried my heart out. And that's like that's me in a nutshell. To be fair, if I'm looking at a footballer now, like what does he graft? Does he work? That's the thing about I like about Newcastle now. You know what I mean? The work they put in, the graft they put in. And it should be a gimme, to be fair, you know what I mean? It should be like, well, first and foremost, before you have a good game or a bad game, you've got to make sure you give 100%. And it doesn't always apply, to be fair, but it's what I always adhere to.
Absolutely, and that is a very good sentiment to end on there. Thank you very much for your time today, Brian. Are you doing anything after this? Or it is a Monday, I should say. It's Monday the 31st of March, just in case it doesn't go out this week. But is there anything sort of
No,
planned for the next
not
couple
till
of
later.
days?
I've got a after school club later, and then I've got the grandkids for tea. Or we've got the grandkids for tea, which are a handful, to be fair.
Fair enough.
But no, like I say, I spend a lot of time with the grandkids now, Jack. It's see them grow up and see them. I don't think any of them's going to be a footballer, but
That was going to be my next point. If
no,
any of them were
no,
going into football,
no, it
yeah,
doesn't. Well, the girl might be a footballer. She's rough as toast, to be fair.
fair
But
enough.
the little lad, he's more academic and crafty stuff. But yeah, I spend a lot of time with them, seeing them grow up.
Fair play, and I think to be fair, a lot of people would say that you've earned that. If not everyone would say you've earned that after your time at Pulse. Thank you very much, Brian. And like I say, if anyone does fancy coming on, do give us a shout. It's always good to get new voices on. And if Paul Baker ever wants to come on, do give me a number.
I will.
Yeah, as I say, it'd be delighted to chat to anyone who does. But thank you very much, Brian, for your time. And as I say, you go with the well wishes of everyone associated with the club. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so much, Jack.
Thank you.